Okay, good morning, people. How are we doing today? So today I wanted to continue the conversation about our net worths. I know many of us are still confused about the subject and wondering if it is worth the trouble. But the truth of the matter is this: before you go building on the land, what do you first do? Clear it. You do an assessment of what, kind of soil you have there, and then that will inform the kind of foundation you're going to build and many other things. Now, what this means is that it is very important to do an X-ray of what your financial position is, whether it's negative or positive or extremely negative, it does not matter. What matters is to know where you stand, and then from there you can begin to fashion a new way for yourself. So, for example, if after you did your assessment, you sat down with yourself and did an honest assessment, and you find out that, oh, you're like several zeros in the red, then you can sit down, ask yourself, how did I get here? What are the habits that I, employed that got me to this point? Now, once you're able to answer that question or those questions, you will be able to then bring yourself to begin to make adjustments. So, for example, I've generally not ever been a frivolous spender. I've always been very careful with my spending, because I grew up watching my dad, budget literally everything that he makes, so I watched him manage his finances in such a way that he lived within his means. So he will never take a loan to live above his means. And so that made me become very conscious of how I expended my income. So um, I was always very clear about, not spending above my means. So no matter what it is, if I can't afford it, it's going to wait. And so, because of that, when I started making money, it was easy for me to control the flow of my income. Yes. Now, many of us, we were not used to that. So, you have a totally different orientation or totally different upbringing. I've heard people say that plus my money, plus other people's money, everything is for spending. Now, the truth is that if you're of that opinion, you're going to live above your means, which means you're going to hardly ever be able to gather anything. Yes. And that is how poverty perpetuates itself. Because if you look at all the statistics, it shows that Africa is is a consumption centric continent, which means we consume more than we produce. And that is just the thing. Once you consume more than you produce, you're going to stay in poverty. Now, many of us have been told, oh, if you do XYZ, if you sow in a church, if you pay your tithe, if you pay your offering, if you do all of those things, you're not going to have it difficult. But the truth of the matter is the principles of God does not negate the principles of money. Yes, it's the same God that told us that He will bless the works of our hands. In other words, if the works of your hands are not productive, you know what that means. So it means that no matter what it is, you still have to obey the principles that are put in place, by the same God, because God will not negate His own um, principles to please or placate your ego. Yes, so that's why it's very important for you to understand where you are financially, which means you do an x-ray of where you stand. Okay, so what are the things I've been spending money on in the last few years? So I came up with a few questions to help have a glimpse into where all your money has been going. Yes. So one of those questions is, what are your top 10 assets? Now, assets are things that you bought with the hope of deriving future benefit from it. Yes. So your cash is an asset, for example. I think we mentioned that in the asset classes series. The stock you have bought, your savings, your investments of different kinds, even properties that you bought when you were very liquid, yes, and you could easily convert them back into capital. Yes, those are assets as well. Now, if you take all of them, there's some of us who have personal items that we generally don't use anymore. They're just there gathering dust. That's capital lying fallow. You can easily sell some of those things off and raise some funds to channel into other productive means. Yes. So once you're able to, get a hang of your top 10 assets, you can easily see where your money has been going to. Yes. Now, the next thing is, what are your top 10 liabilities? So by the time you look at all the different things that take money out of your pocket, either regularly or occasionally, you can tell. So, for example, somebody who spends regularly on Ashore will quickly see how much of a drain it is on their finances. Yes. And yeah, if you take many unnecessary trips, for example, so if you like to travel a lot, there's nothing wrong in traveling, but you have to learn to travel within your means, which means that if the time for vacation has not come, which means sometimes you have to save for 2, 3 years to go on that vacation. Now, if you have to, for those who go to vacations every year, you could do something a lot more cheaper, maybe local travels, or, find something fun to do that doesn't require you to burn through your savings or your capital. Now, once you're able to look at the top 10 things that have been draining your pocket, you can tell quickly where all your money is going. In fact, from the 10 top liabilities and the top 10 assets that you have in your life, you can tell where all your money has been going. Yes. The next question is, what is the most expensive item that you currently own? Now, once you're able to identify that, it will give you a pointer to where your money has been going to. Yes. So I've heard a lot of people talk about luxury, and then my question is, what is luxury? Because luxury is a different concept to different people. For somebody, luxury can be a yacht. For another person, it can be a car, maybe a Camry 2010. So luxury varies from person to person, but it's also important to understand your own definition of the subject, yes, and also to check if you have any such things. So some people will say, oh, they have luxury clothes, so they have designer clothes, and they term it as luxury. Well, I don't want to give my own opinion about that, but the truth is you need to know where your money is going to. Yes. Then you need to also identify your biggest source of income and your biggest source of expense. Yes. So in Nigeria, statistics have shown that majority of our expenses are on food. So if that is the case, you also need to watch your appetite, because if you eat like an elephant and you earn like an ant, you're going to struggle financially. Yes. So these questions will help you to be able to sit down and look at the result of what you have been doing over the years up until this point. Now, that will then help you to factor new habits or new ways to make better decisions so that in a few years' time, you'll be in a better position than where you are now. Like I said, there's nothing wrong or anything bad with being in a negative net worth. I used to be there just a few years ago. So I don't feel some type of way about it, but I worked on it. I wanted a change and I did something about it. And I believe you're going to do the same thing. Have a lovely day and catch you in the next video.